Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello everyone. So I am Survi and today we are going to talk about the social structure and the function. When we talk about the social structure and function, the first and the foremost thing that is important for us to understand is what is a social structure. When we take this term, use this term social structure, we do understand that there is something related to the society that we are talking about because it has social involved in it. On the other hand, it is something to do with the structure, it is something to do with the pattern form, it is something to do with something which has set norms and rules and regulations, and that is why comes under the whole concept of structure. So let's just understand in detail what does social structure mean. We see that human beings have some basic needs. We have needs of food, we have needs of shelter for protection, we have our hunger needs, we have our survival needs. So we as human beings do have the basic needs for our survival, for our existence, and which they have explained in terms of food, clothing, shelter, all of these aspects which we talk about or which we say as the basic necessities. Now, human beings satisfy needs in groups rather than as individuals, and there is the interaction involved in the process. We as individuals are not always in the position to fulfill all our needs for ourselves. For example, if you take an example of hunger, if you take an example of food, we are not in the position of going and sowing the seeds, taking care of the crops, then at the time of reaping the crops, taking care of them again, processing, getting those processed, the whole process that is involved in the food reaching you, be it in any of the raw material form, like any of the pulses which are there that you cook at your home, or be it any of the cooked form like the pizzas and the burgers that we get from any of the outlets of any of the branded outlets or restaurants that are there around us. All of these things, both of these aspects are some things that cannot be done completely on our own. So that means we need to have the support, we need to have that whole connect, the whole interaction with the people around us, with different individuals in the group, and that is why it is said that all human beings cannot satisfy the needs as an individual. We do have to cater to the groups, we do have to be a part of the groups to be able to satisfy our needs. Taking an example of shelter, shelter is also something that you can't really have totally on your own. You need someone to provide you the raw material of bricks, cement that's required, the lintels that are required, the flooring that's required, the ceiling that's required. All of these people are required for to support you, even if you're doing this whole process of construction on your own, which is again not possible. As an individual, you cannot build a bungalow on your own. As an individual, you cannot have a structure set on your own. So that means you again need the help of the group of people. You again need the help of the groups to fulfill your needs, to fulfill even your basic needs. Exactly in the same way, if you talk about clothing, when we talk about clothing, it is not you who's getting the fiber, who's then getting the fibers processed, then you are getting during the process, you're getting the raw material, you're getting those very thin threads being knit, and then you are getting a shirt as your end product. So basically what is there is that your end products are is something that you consume. However, to reach that end product, there are a lot of people involved in the process. It is not just one person who can take care or who can make that end product available for you. You have the availability, or you have the requirement of the raw material, you have the requirement of the process, you have the requirement of the transportation, you have the requirement of the sales. All of these things are there. It is a structure that works. It is a kind of interaction that people have with one another. It is a kind of interaction that groups have with one another to reach or to finally get that end product, which is one of the basic needs or one of the basic necessities for you in the life. Moving ahead, these interactions do follow a pattern, these interactions do follow a well defined structure. Let's see what is that thing. So, a social structure varies from society to society and from groups to groups. So, whatever the social structure is, whatever the hierarchy is, whatever the division of the work for all of the people is, whatever the kind of interaction is, it depends on it varies from society to society and from groups to groups. Now, why is it there? You and me talking or you and me interacting will have some other kind of an interaction, will have some other kind of or some other flow of the conversation. Whereas if I talk to a third person, if I talk to any of your classmates, and even if they are of your age, even if they are a part of your society, even if they are a part of your group, then also there are very very major chances of the interaction not exactly being the same. Herein we are talking about society and groups which are larger wholes, which does not have one person at all involved, which had variety, which had a lot of people involved, and hence the variety of ideas and the variety in sense of ideologies, understanding, all of those involved. And exactly because of this, the social structure keeps on changing. So, the purpose of the social structure is ultimately to satisfy human needs or to perform social functions. So, what is the reason? What is the requirement of the social structure? One, it is to satisfy the human needs. You got to have that structure so that you reach to that end product and your need is satisfied. What is your basic requirement is satisfied, and hence this is what one of the major purpose of the social structure is. Secondly, to perform the social functions, there are certain social responsibilities, roles, and a part that you play as an individual or as a human being in the society. Now, when we talk about all of those aspects, is when you talk about performing the social functions, and again becomes one of the very very important reason, or because one of the very very important purpose behind the social structure. They say now the relationship between various structures and functions is called the social system. The relationship that you have between the food industry and the clothing industry and the travel industry or the transportation industry, and for that matter the construction industry, and here again getting back to the food, and multiple things involved. You have human beings in here, you have health in here, all of these multiple things involved, all of these collaboratively, these are all different structures. This, it is like a web diagram. These are all different structures but are connected to one another. Now when they are connected to one another, this whole makes or becomes the social system. So this is what is the definition or what is a social system. So social system is the collection, the relationship between various structures and functions in the society comes and it makes the social system. Moving on to, in general, structure means the ways in which something is organized. Like I told you, like I explained you people just before, the pattern, the flow, or the set norms and regulations. So, how are these things organized? In general, structure means these, right? Very normal example that I've tried to show in here is the structure. If you see it as a structure of a building, it requires a base, a strong base on which the building can be set up, right? So that is what the structure is. It is well defined, it is well, it has to flow exactly in the perfect shape to get the perfect end result, and has set ways of understanding or set ways of reaching to that agenda or the end result that we are wanting to have. So it is well organized, built, or put together. So all of these, even if, okay, let's say if we are planning to have an annual day. When you plan to have an annual day, all the things starting from when are you planning to have it? Who all are you planning to invite? Where do you want to have it? And what all do you want to have in there? Who will be your guest of honor? How many teams will be there, which will be serving different roles? All of these things forming a structure of a successful event of your annual day. So that is what exactly is structure in the very normal terms. In the very general terms, we do understand it, taking an example of the structure of the building. Now, similarly, if you talk about human body, what is it? We are a combination, rather we are a kind of a mixture or together coming of different parts or organs which are organized in such a way that the body as a whole becomes a living being. Our parts, as in our organs, are of no use if they are in isolation or if they are working as individuals. It is of no use unless your blood is of no use unless and until it is being used by different organs for their survival or for their functioning. Exactly in the way your heart is of no use unless you have the blood in there, the flowing and the apt amount of blood in there for the usage of the heart. So our body is structured in that way. I'm again using the term structured. Please understand this whole concept of structure. It is structured or rather organized in a way that one part of our body is complementing it to the other part of the body, and that is how the whole human body is working, or the survival of the human being is there. If you must have seen or you must have heard about a lot of times when you talk about some kind of a transplant, or you talk about some kind of the donation of the organs that are there. So you are donating it, and you must have heard that it has to be taken care of when it comes out of the body, comes out of a person's body, and when there's some very quick swift amount of time that is only available to be transplanted to the other person's body. Now why is it? Because if the person or if the organ is left alone, if the organ is left in not those conditions and circumstances wherein they are able to survive on their own, they will be of no use. They have to be swiftly transplanted to another body wherein they are adapted as not a foreign particle or not a foreign entity, but adapted and amalgamated as their own body parts, and hence the whole process of or whole the whole process of the body functions start happening again. So this is what is a very perfect example and a very relatable example. I'm sure you would be able to relate very well to this example of body and how does a structure work. Now basically structure has three aspects. Now, what are these aspects? It is the first one is the component part or the material that is being used. For taking an example of your organs, the body organs which are there. So it is the material used or the component parts. Component part, what is it the composition of? Rather, what is it made up of? So that is what makes the components of one particular structure. So the first and the foremost requirement obviously is what the component parts and the materials used. The next is the arrangement of the component parts or the material in a definite order. A lot of times we talk about or we face challenges or when we see that the whole structure or the whole arrangement is not being followed, you do not have that arrangement in the right way, how do you think it will follow if I place a circuit A in front of the circuit B, which are not really complementing each other's work? So the whole structure has to be followed. The whole, what if what if your mouth is placed at some point below your neck or below even your stomach? So this is all the structure. The whole process of digestion is to be completed and is required. The basic requirement is the arrangements, the correct arrangement, the perfect arrangement of the components part of the structure or of the unit in the definite order which has been decided, or which is the best complementing way of the survival or of the functioning of the unit and the resulting one unit. So the whole body that you have organs. Secondly, you have the structure, the correct arrangement of the organs, and then you have the resulting one unit which is available there. So these are what are the three components of, or three rather aspects of structure in general. They say now, talking about the social structure, that social structure allows performing most of the activities of everyday life with some efficiency. You do have a set plan in your mind. You do have a set idea, a set norm and rules in your mind. What are you supposed to do? It helps you in performing the activities of your daily life in a very well planned and in a very efficient way. You know what are you supposed to do. A lot of times when we do not have the clarity of what are we required to do is the place or is where we face the challenge. However, here when you have a very clear understanding, it's like doing a research. When before the procedure, before finalizing the procedure, you have to answer or you have to have a statement of inquiry or the question which that you would be catering on, and before this you got to have a subtopic under which you would be deciding on the subtopic. So it is a whole, you have a fixed path in your mind. When you have the fixed path in your mind, obviously your journey becomes easier, and that is what the social structure does to us. Obviously, it spares us from hundreds of little everyday jobs because you have people helping you here and there around with things. You have people with their defined roles. You have people with their defined duties and responsibilities, and hence it helps us spare a lot of time, spare us from a lot of little everyday jobs that otherwise we would be doing for ourselves. For example, like we took in the starting, preparing of the food, you get those raw material ready for yourselves, and at a lot of times nowadays, because of our modern societies, we do even get the cooked food available for ourselves in the from the restaurants, and that is making a lot of tasks for us very much easier. So that is also a part of the social structure. It gives groups and societies a degree of stability and continuity. You do have a stability that, okay, I will be doing this task, you will be doing that task. So it is in a way a sorted system. If I it is in a way a system which is smoothly going on. It is in a way a system which does not have the interference, a lot of interference from one or the other groups available. So you see a lot of stability, you see a lot of continuity, because you know what are you supposed to do, and you keep on doing that task, or you keep on doing that particular that particular role, or you keep on performing that particular role or function that you are supposed to perform. So that is what makes it a very continuous and a smooth process. Now, social structure is basically the social reality which influences us in our daily life. Social structure is the social reality. Some things, or all of the things that we have talked about, these are the things that are happening to us in real. It is not something that I'm just thinking about food, or I'm just thinking about clothing, or I'm just thinking about the construction sites. It is something that is happening in reality. It might be there that it is not always happening to me only as per as an individual, but it is happening in the society. So when this is happening on daily basis in our daily lives, obviously it becomes a social reality. In other words, they say that social structure is a way a society is organized into expected relationships. How are we expected to respond? How are we expected to perform our duties to make the lives of the others easier? All of these aspects are involved in this concept of social structure. You are having a well organized relationship with each other as a part of the society, within the groups and among the groups as well, because you know what can you expect from the other person, because you know what are your expected goals and what may your expected responses be. So because of this smooth structure, again I'm using the term smooth structure, this whole this whole process of social structure stays sorted or stays perfectly flowing. Now, social system is closely related to the social structure. How? Social system is the way how things are being knit, and social structure is the way how things are being performed. So, social structure obviously is a very, very close knit entity as to the social structure aspect. Every society or group has a system. Without a system, no unit can perform. We have talked about this also, that every society or any kind of group has a system. Our body also has a system of functioning, even when it comes to digestion, it comes to excretion, it comes to respiration, it comes to a sight, hearing, all of these aspects. So this is a system that is flowing on. This is a system that is there. Without that system, no unit can function. Our body will not be able to function properly if the whole process of respiration is not taking place properly. If we again refer to the current pandemic situation, it is that a lot of people have actually faced multiple organ multiple organ failures because the lungs were not able to function properly. The one system of respiration was not able to function properly. That gave the problem in the whole unit and the survival or the functioning of the whole unit. So this is what exactly explains it, that without a system, no unit can function. Your unit and so without your system being properly organized as well, no unit can function in the situation, or no unit can function in the best way possible. However, in sociology, there is no single agreed definition of social structure. When you talk about social structure, it might be just a combination of systems for some of you. It may be just referring to the end unit or the byproduct for a lot of us. For some of us, it may just be the process. So till now, we have in sociology not really able to come to one agreed single definition of structure, because again the areas or the ways or the concepts that we prioritize are very different from one another, and hence is the reason that we are not really able to come to a position wherein we do understand, or we do agree rather, or we do come to a consensus that okay, this is the correct definition of social structure, because somewhere or the other it lacks. Somewhere or the other you just see, okay, this is not something which there's this thing which is missing, or there's social process which is missing, or there's some unit that is missing, there's entity or system that is missing. So we do not have one single definition. However, any particular definition of the social structure is dependent upon the particular sociologist's way of looking at the reality. How I look at the reality as a sociologist: is my focus on the process, or is my focus on the end result, or is my focus at the on the systems being involved, or is my focus on the larger unit or the complete unit? Depending on that is how the people defined the term social structure. Some sociologists explain, so basically, some sociologists, they explain and classify the social structure on the basis of the social values. So, like I said, a lot of sociologists and almost all the sociologists have different ways of classifying, different priorities, different. So, and that is the reason no one, like all of them, have not been able to come to the consensus. Now, when we were talking about priorities, it is one of the bases of different sociologists having different ways or different explanation of the term social structure. Some of them define it, or some of them have the basis of the social values involved, and that is how they explain, or that is how they define social culture. However, some other sociologists explain the achievement of the goal, like I was talking about the end product, the reaching of the end product, the getting of the getting throughout the process and reaching to the end product in the structure, like family or school or army, in the soul of social structure. So it is basically the explanation, or it is basically the sociologist having or giving emphasis in this achievement of the goal, and that is how they define, or that is how what the social culture means to them, the social structure means to them. Also, sociologists have often included the study of associations institutions and groups, etc., in the analysis of social structure. Like I was talking about the process, who all are there in the process, who all are there in the whole journey, who all are having what kind of a association do they have, what kind of an interaction do they have, how does the interaction that they have come to a point wherein the whole end product comes in, or the whole process is becoming successful, is what is taken into consideration by a lot of sociologists. So herein we see that sociologists, like I said here, have their own priorities. They have their own understanding. They have their own way of looking at things. They have their own ideas. They have their own ideologies. They have their own, of they have their own way of presenting things in front of the world. So that is exactly the reason why we as a sociology community, or we as a social community in sociology, under sociology, have not been able to come to a well defined explanation, or a well defined definition rather, of the term social structure, because we have people focusing on the achievement of the goals, we have people focusing on the process, the interaction, the study of association, and that is the reason there's no one consensus on the definition how it should be. Moving on to what exactly and what to summarize rather a social structure is. So, social structure, now, if we summarize, is the way in which various elements or parts of the society or group are organized and follow stable patterns of collective rules, roles, and activities. Like I have talked about this in the previous part of the video as well, in the previous slides as well. It is in a way talking about, or it is in a way an organized setup which follow a stable pattern, which follow a set pattern, a well defined pattern of collection of rules, or the collection of rules. You have your own set rules, you have your own set regulations, and you have your own set roles and activities. So you are not really bogging in, you're not really getting involved in the in each other's areas, you're not really getting involved in the working of each other, and the it is all a web, it is all a connected aspect, wherein all of them have their well defined roles. It is like a family unit again, so basically it is like a family unit again, how everyone have their own defined roles, how everyone has their own set ideas, how everyone, even if all of them are individuals, even if they are separate human beings, separate entities, separate units, they are having one, they are performing one role, as per their requirements, and having a whole well defined social structure of being there as a part of the family, where family is the larger unit, or family is the understanding, or the family is the bigger picture that is being taken into consideration. Also, it says the social structure is the way in which units of a group or society are related to one another. Right? We were talking about how this unit as a family is related to the society, how a group of people, let's say of a neighborhood, let's say a whole society, as in like a whole residential society or an apartment, is related with among each other, and is again related to the society in a bigger picture, is what comes under the social structure. Majorly that we have already talked about. It is real but is invisible. It shapes and guides our actions. It is definitely a real picture because we experience it. It is invisible because we experience it. It is not always visible in terms of actions. It is not always visible in terms of some book or some rule book which is there for terms and conditions. It is a connect that we feel. It is an interaction that takes place. It is an experience that we do experience, and that is how this whole process of social structure is going on, and it shapes and guides our actions. The way I as a child might be having an interaction, or I as a child might be treated or being socialized in, or have been seen my position in the whole social structure, this might be there, the kind of experiences that I've had, this might be still there with me, guiding me in my actions right now. Some of those experiences that I had, some of those memories that I had, all of those becoming a part of my actions, or the background of my action in today's world, is what is exactly the very major aspect of social structure again. Talking about the elements of the social structure, you have social status involved, you have social roles involved, you have social norms involved, and you have social values involved. You have social status, which is basically the kind of status that you have hold or you hold in the society. You have social role involved in here. What role are you playing? You have social rules and norms rather, and then you have social values involved here as well. We will look up into this aspect of the elements of the social structure one by one. Coming or starting with the social status, it is the position occupied by an individual in the group or the society. What position are you at in the society or the group? It is not just talking about the career wise position that you hold. It is a kind of, maybe, if you want to understand in a very normal, in a very general term, it is the kind of the position of someone who holds of being the bread earner of the family. Maybe the father, it may be the mother, but the kind of position that the person holds, that because of that person the family is able to survive, or that is one person who's taking the major decisions in the society, in the family, is what comes as a position role. For example, if there is a group of people, or rather if there is a group of friends wherein you always do give a major importance to the opinions of one person which is present in the group, that is because of the position that person holds in the group. That is because his position, his status in the group is considered that great, or is considered at that higher level, that people do want to listen to him, people do want to kind of kind of accept or adapt their understanding of things, and that is how the process of taking decisions at times are influenced. Every individual who is the member of the group occupies a position or a status. It is not that you will, if even if you're a part of the group, you will not have any kind of a status. It is about the higher or the lower, or in terms of acceptability, or in terms of, let's say, being involved in the group, that status is there. You have, like, they've taken an example of the family members of a family, wherein there are different members. Now all these different members do have their roles, do have their status, do have their position. It is not something like, as a child you will not have any status in the family, or as an adult you will not have any status in the family. It is about the higher and the lower status. At times it is a little hierarchical, it is at times not hierarchical as well, when it is shared by the group also. But herein, when you have different members, you have certain roles, a certain kind of position that the child holds, certain kind of position that the parents hold, certain kind of position that the grandparents holds, in fact certain kind of position that your pet or your helping house helps might also hold in the family. So this is how the social status is defined, which is there for each and every member of the group, irrespective of at what levels are they placed at. Now, talking about two very major important statuses, types of statuses is one, the ascribed status, and the second being the achieved status. We have talked about ascribed status before as well, when we were talking about caste and when we were talking about how there are certain things that are there which you are born into. There are certain things which you cannot change. There are certain things which the society has, which you have as as an innate self. You are when you come to this planet Earth, it is something that comes with you and you cannot change that. Something very, very important: age and your sex. No doubt a lot of you might have that in mind, that sex is something that a lot of us, because of some of us rather, because of their preferences are changing these days, and it is possible, but then it is not something that is done naturally. It is a medical process that is helping that change of the sex as well. Something like age, you cannot change the age. If you're born in 1994, and with the years that are growing up, that is going down, you do grow, you do age, and it is something that becomes your ascribed status. For example, majorly in India, I am not talking about any other country. Here in India, your caste status is by birth. Either you're born in Hindu, you're born in Muslim, you're born a Brahmin, a Shudra, or a Kshatriya. Your caste status is in India by birth. You're born in that family who is having that particular status, or who is having that particular caste, and that is what describes the ascribed status. Moving on to what is the achieved status. Now, achieved status is something like your career. I achieved that position of sitting in front of you and talking to you about the knowledge that I want to transfer or that I want to share with you. The person who is the Mr. Narendra Modi actually achieved that status of being the Prime Minister of the country. Someone who is the CEO of the company is the position that that person has achieved. It is not to do with it is not to do with your birth and the kind of class, or the kind of setup that you are born in. It is definitely based on the personal efforts that the person puts in and hence achieves it. Now, given an example of the achieved status, your class is an achieved status. Wherein here we talked about that in India, caste is an ascribed status. Here, your class becomes an achieved status, wherein even if you're born in a family with, in a family with lower economical strata, you can still, with your personal efforts, achieve that status of being from a lower class family to a high or a middle class family. So this is something I am sure you might have talked about, or you might have heard about, a daughter or a son of a rickshaw puller becoming an IS officer, or any of the government holding a very great government position in the society. That is something that that person has achieved because of the personal efforts that they have put in. It has nothing to do in relation with the society. It has nothing to do with what the others or what you are born in. It is definitely your personal will and your personal efforts to achieve it. So these are the two basic statuses, and these are the two basic understanding and division of the social status, wherein one is the ascribed status and the other one is the achieved status.